All right, students, this is the Diction and Imagery mini lesson. As I go through the information in these next few slides, you're going to need to fill in the blanks in your notebook time assignment. You'll see that there are brackets for when you're inserting certain words, so make sure that you add in those missing words. You don't have to keep the brackets, you can just delete them. And yeah, I color-coded the steps just to make it a little bit easier for you to remember and see things. Every time you will need to enter something, or every time there's a slide that comes up, where you're going to need to enter information, you'll see this icon in the lower right-hand corner. Right, so let's get started. So first, let's start off with what is diction. Right, the definition of diction is the Diction is the purposeful selection of words and phrases to have a desired effect on readers. Or translation, or in other words, and this is what you're going to put in your document, diction is when you pick a word or phrase on purpose because you want your reader to react a certain way. You can go ahead and pause the video here and copy that down into your notes. I'm going to move on. So a quick example of what diction looks like, right? If you take a look at my little story on the left, right? A man walks into a store. He walks up to two salespeople and says, "Hello, could you help me look for something?" The two salespeople both answer at the same time. Salesperson 1 says, "I guess, what are you looking for?" Salesperson 2 says, "Sure, what are you looking for?" If I asked you the question, which person sounds rude, you'd probably say salesperson 1. But when you look closer at what they actually said, they said the same thing here, what are you looking for? But the first part, there's a major difference between saying, "I guess," right, which comes across as annoying, or like that person is annoyed, and "sure," which sounds more positive, like they do want to help you. That's what we're going to start looking at, is how diction works and how specific words are chosen on purpose. All right, so how diction works. All words have a connotation. The definition of connotation is the personal definition of a word and how it makes us feel. There's the definition that you can find in the dictionary, right? But then there's also the definition that we have personally for that word. And basically, all words have three different types of connotation. There's positive. So for example, Brad skipped happily through the colorful fall leaves. Right? The words skipped, happily, and colorful usually make people feel positively. There's negative words. Brad trudged miserably through the dead, fallen leaves. Right? All of those underlined words usually make people feel negatively, right? Trudged, miserably, and dead. And then there's neutral connotation, or neutral words. If I just wrote Brad walked through the leaves, right? The underlined word walked doesn't usually make people feel positively or negatively. It's just giving the facts. Take a minute now to go ahead and fill in your capture sheet. You can pause the video. I'm going to move on. Okay, so during class, I asked students to kind of take a look at these two posters. Which poster's diction would likely upset someone or has a negative connotation? And I asked them to use Zoom to react, to show me their reaction. But just take a look at the one on the left first. At the top, don't spread germs. Destroy all bacteria when you sneeze, right? Dab, just like the character in the picture is doing. And then look at the one on the right. You need to fight germs. Don't act badly when you sneeze. It's still the same acronym, right? DAB, still the same picture. But if you take a look at it, the one on the right is probably going to upset some people, right? Because it makes it seem like they're the ones who are in trouble or are being bad people if they ever don't do this, right? This one seems like everybody is included and everyone's working together, but this one seems like it's trying to blame somebody, right? And make you feel bad. And all they did was change a couple of key words, right? Instead of destroy all bacteria, don't act badly, right? Don't spread germs. That's kind of general for everybody. You need to fight germs. More specific, kind of targeting you. So when you're analyzing diction, right, when you're trying to explain to somebody why words are important, you need to kind of discuss what is and isn't used. There are 3 steps. Step 1 is to discuss the general tone. For example, Brad skipped happily through the colorful leaves, right? Words like skipped, happily, and colorful usually make people feel positively. This bottom part is analysis. Okay, that's step 1. Step 2 is to discuss the specific words. So the word skipped is positive because we usually associate it with kids having fun, right? That's an act that kids do. Happy is a positive emotion that we all want to feel whenever possible. And people tend to like colorful things rather than things that are not colorful. So after you've discussed the general tone and you've discussed the specific words, the last thing you need to do is ask the question, what if? Right? What if the author used a different word instead of the word skipped? And you get to kind of pick what word might go in there, right? So in my case, what if the word walked was put in there? Well, my answer to that question is the word walked doesn't work as well as skipped because the act of walking isn't as closely associated with being happy, right? You hear skipping and you immediately most of us immediately think that that person is happy. You hear walked and most of us don't know how somebody is feeling when they do that. Right? You can walk happy or you can walk angrily, etc. Take a look at these 2 posters again, right? And basically, we're going to go through those 3 steps by answering these 4 questions. We did this in class, right? So what is the general tone of poster A? What words reflect that tone, right? Don't spread germs, destroy all bacteria when you sneeze. The general tone of this poster is kind of neutral, right? Or you could say it's positive, right? It's designed to make everybody feel like they can do something, right? Specifically when it says destroy all bacteria, right? Bacteria are the enemy here, right? And don't spread germs. What's the general tone of poster B and what words reflect that tone, right? The general tone of this one is definitely negative, right? Again, we talked about it before, right? Words or phrases like you need to fight germs kind of comes across as negative, like you're being accused of not doing that already. And then don't act badly, right? You're being told that you're bad if you're not doing this correctly, right? So that is designed to make you feel bad. So what if the word destroy in poster A was replaced with delete? Would the poster be as good? Why or why not, right? Don't spread germs. Delete all bacteria when you sneeze. There's something really weird about using the word delete, right? It's another word that means to get rid of something, and it also starts with a D, so it would work there. But we don't use the word delete when we think about getting rid of germs and bacteria, right? We use the word delete when we're writing something, right? Or when we're talking about getting rid of a file. So notice how that specific word doesn't sort of make sense for that kind of poster. So it wouldn't be as good. What would happen if you replace the phrase, you need to fight germs, right, up here in poster B, with we all need to fight germs? Would the poster be better or worse, and why and how, right? I think it's pretty obvious that it would make the poster better, right? If you wrote, we all need to fight germs, don't act badly, that at least kind of makes it seem a little bit less like you're being attacked personally, right? And that it's kind of a group effort to achieve this, right? To get rid of the bacteria and to be clean. Okay. The next section, right, and the next part for you to write a note down is about imagery. So what is imagery? The definition of imagery is the stimulation of the 5 senses in writing for the purpose of describing scenes and influencing readers' emotions. Translation, or in other words, what you're going to write down. Right? Imagery is when you describe how something looks, sounds, smells, tastes, or feels to help readers visualize a scene and to make them feel a certain way. A quick imagery example. A man walks into a small shop squeezed between two larger, more modern stores. As he opens the door, a light smell of moldy wood hits his nose. The air outside was damp, but the small space heater by the shop's front door quickly warmed the man's exposed hands and face. As he walks towards a salesperson, the sounds of smooth instrumental music is heard from somewhere in the back of the store. Which senses are being stimulated here? In the blue, right, a small shop squeezed between two larger, more modern stores. That's sight imagery, right? We're being given a description of what something looks like. He opens the door, a light smell of moldy wood hits his nose, right? That's smell imagery. The air outside was damp, but the space heater quickly warms the man's exposed hands and face. That's touch imagery, right? Something that's damp feels wet to the touch, right? And warming someone's face is describing how something feels against their skin. And then the last one is sound imagery, right? The sounds of smooth instrumental music are heard from somewhere in the store. You won't necessarily see all five senses. Notice that the man doesn't taste anything as he walks into the store, right? But you want to look for how the different senses and are stimulated in imagery when you're reading a text. Okay, so how does imagery work, right? First, all images make us feel, right? It's just like diction. You can look at something that's imagery and you feel positively, right? If you look back at that old example, right? Brad skipped happily through the colorful fall and leaves, right? The sight imagery, right? The picture we get in our head of Brad with a smile and skipping usually makes people feel positively, right? Or they know that the character is feeling positively. Imagery can also make you feel negative. Brad looked down at his soggy shoes. The wet leaves soaked through his shoes, making his feet cold and wet. Right? The touch imagery of cold and wet feet usually makes people feel negatively. Most of us would try to avoid that if we could. And sometimes imagery can make you feel neutral, right? If I just wrote the sentence, Brad could smell fish cooking, that's smell imagery, right? But it can kind of go either way, depending on your preference. Some of us like fish and some of us don't. In this case, if the narrator tells us that Brad likes fish, then it would be positive. But if the narrator had told us before that Brad doesn't like fish, then this smell imagery is designed to let us know that it's negative. Again, neutral things usually kind of just look like this, right? Not a whole lot of elaboration. And the narrator, we have to kind of look in the text more closely to kind of figure out if that's supposed to make us feel positive or negative. So if we look at that imagery example from before about the man walking into the store, how might this piece of imagery make you feel, right? If you're getting a picture in your head of a small shop squeezed between two larger, more modern stores, some people might feel positively about that, right? Like the image might look kind of nice. Some people don't like the idea of things being squeezed together, right? Especially when you have two larger things on the sides. So that might make some people feel negatively. Let's keep going. The light smell of moldy wood hits his nose, right? Again, this is a preference thing. Some people may like that smell, when you walk into a hardware store, and some people might dislike that smell. And we'll point out in here, right, it says that it's a light smell. It's not like an overpowering smell. So that might point us in the direction of maybe more positive than negative. The next one, right, the air outside was damp, but the space heater quickly warms the man's exposed hands and face. We start to see a change here, right? Damp air outside, like, when it's wet out, most of us don't like that. But when this guy walks into the store and he's able to warm up his hands and his face, that usually makes us all feel positive. So we may be moving from negative stuff in the beginning to a more positive experience as we go further. And then when we look at the sound of smooth instrumental music coming from the back of the store, that's probably designed to make us feel positive as well, right? Notice the word smooth, right? That's one of those positive connotation words or diction words. So what is the author trying to convey to you, right? I think you can make the argument that the author's trying to tell us that when the man first walked in the store, he was uncomfortable, but as he gets into the store, he finds it more comfortable the longer he's there. Okay, so take a look at these two posters. Which poster's imagery has a positive emotional effect on the viewer, and which one has a negative emotional effect on the viewer, and why? Just kind of think about this. We'll come back to these posters, but notice that even though these are this is the first poster, right, and this is the second one. Even though these are two very different posters, they use the exact same words, right? How do germs spread? But the images that they use, right, are very different. And so they might impact somebody looking at them differently. So when you analyze imagery, right, it's similar to when you analyze diction. You need to talk about what is and is not there. So first, you need to identify the type of imagery. So Brad skipped happily through the colorful fallen leaves, right? The description of Brad smiling and skipping through the leaves is sight imagery. This is our analysis. Step 2 is to discuss the emotions attached to the use of imagery, right? The sight imagery, right, that picture of Brad with a smile and skipping, usually makes people feel positively because smiling and skipping are happy images, right? People only usually do that stuff when they are happy. And there is no step 3, right? This one only requires 2 steps. As long as you follow step 1 and 2, you will properly analyze imagery. However, there is a major warning. Many students write things like, this is imagery because I can imagine what it looks like. That is not analysis, okay? Notice how in this answer, they didn't do those 2 steps. They didn't tell me what type of imagery it is, and they didn't tell me what emotion is attached to that imagery. So this will get you no points. Remember the steps, right? Identify the type of imagery, and then discuss how that description of the imagery is supposed to make a reader feel. If you go back to looking at these 2 posters, right, and we answer some questions. First, what type of imagery is found in poster A, right? We've got because it's just posters, right, and there aren't many words in here, I think we can make the argument that in poster A, the only type of imagery we've got is sight imagery, right? The picture or the sight of a teddy bear, it looks like, right? A teddy bear child lying in bed and a bear dressed up as a doctor. What emotions are usually attached to the images in poster A, right? Well, usually teddy bears make people feel positively, right? Even though this teddy bear kind of looks like it has a little bit of a sad face because it's sick in bed. But being in bed is usually one of the things that has positive and negative connotations, right? We like to be in bed when we're not sick, right? And when we maybe are just sleepy, but when we're sick, we don't like to be in bed. The doctor here, right? A bear dressed up as a doctor, that's probably designed to make us feel good, right? Especially because they used a cartoon rather than a real bear. Some of us might also notice this imagery here, right? The germs imagery. And that's probably designed to make us feel bad, right? And notice how they're probably the largest thing on here, kind of taking up equal space. What two types of imagery are found in poster B? You obviously have visual imagery, right? Of this man sneezing. But what is the other type of imagery that you're probably feeling, right, as you see the cloud of spit, basically, and particles, etc., that comes out of this man's mouth when he sneezes? Some of us may hear that, right? We can almost hear this man sneezing. Some of us can almost, it's disgusting, but some of us can kind of feel it, right? Like you almost know what it would feel like to be in the way, like if you were standing here or something, right? What emotions are usually attached to the images in part B? Both of those things should, I think most of us, like completely skeeve us out, right? Creep you out, make you feel bad, right? Nobody wants to be sneezed on. Nobody wants to know that when they sneeze, they're kind of doing this to other people in the room, right? And especially now, given the time of COVID, right, doing this seems really irresponsible and might actually even make people angry, right? Because they didn't cover their mouth and nose.